I don't know about you, but I'm burned out. I'm burned out on the social media culture wars, and I'm burned out on politics right now. And I don't think I'm alone in that. At the same time, I don't want to disengage completely. I don't want to just tune out everything and pretend none of this matters. I'm also not going to pretend I'm some kind of political expert. I'm not, but I've been searching for patterns. I got more interested in doing this after the 2024 election. That was when this stopped feeling abstract and started feeling important. I had been following Alan Lichtman's 13 key system for years. His model wasn't based on polling or daily commentary. It was supposed to evaluate structure, things like the condition of the country, whether the country was strong, whether there was social unrest, whether there was scandal, whether the incumbent party appeared stable. When the prediction didn't match the outcome, the explanation was that misinformation had become so powerful that it overrode structure, that perception distorted reality enough to change the result.
My system, the 13 keys in the White House, depends upon a rational, pragmatic electorate deciding whether the White House party is governed well enough to get 4 more years or not. That was shattered in an unprecedented way in this election with the avalanche of misinformation and a feeble, almost non-existent counter.
But that didn't sit right with me. If the system is based on structure, then structure shouldn't simply collapse because of narrative. So I started asking myself something different. What if structure didn't fail? What if the evaluation of structure was influenced by the information environment itself? The keys require judgment. They require deciding whether the country is stable, whether the economy is strong, whether unrest is significant. And those judgments are shaped by how you understand what's happening, and that understanding comes from the media. That was the moment I realized this might not just be about bias, it might be about narrative. And that's when it clicked for me. The simplest way I found to evaluate what I'm hearing is by paying attention to archetypal narrative framing. What I mean by archetypal narrative framing is when real people or real events are presented in very specific roles. The hero, the villain, the victim, the savior, the rebel, the trickster, the wise old man, the moral authority. When someone is framed as the wise old man, for example, they aren't just presented as knowledgeable. They're presented as someone who sees through chaos, someone whose perspective rises above the noise. That framing builds automatic trust. When someone is framed as a villain, the opposite happens. Their actions are interpreted through suspicion. Their motives are assumed. Even neutral behavior starts to look malicious because it fits the role. Archetypes make stories emotionally efficient. They simplify complexity. They tell you who to root for and who to reject, without you consciously deciding to do that. And I want to be very clear about something. The presence of an archetype does not automatically mean you're being lied to. Archetypal storytelling is human nature. It's how people make sense of the world. Sometimes real events genuinely do fit these roles. Storytelling itself is not the problem. Archetypes are not the problem. Even having a political belief is not the problem. The problem is combination. When natural storytelling instincts are fused with the political agenda, accuracy can start taking a back seat to persuasion. There's also a difference between belief and agenda-driven messaging. If someone genuinely holds a belief, their interpretation of events may flow from that belief. Their conclusions might evolve, but their core belief remains stable. If someone's core belief changes, that does not automatically make them a liar. People change their political beliefs. People change their religious beliefs. Sometimes that happens because they realize their previous belief was wrong or based on incomplete information. That's growth. The issue isn't belief change. The issue is when messaging shifts to protect an outcome. There's a difference between refining your position because new information came in and repositioning your message so the narrative still works. And this is where it starts to matter in a more serious way. When storytelling and political agenda begin reinforcing each other, the risk isn't just biased language, it's the shaping of perception itself. Selective framing is already widely recognized. It's not controversial to say that media outlets emphasize data that supports their narrative and minimize data that complicates it. That part's already understood. Perception isn't shaped only by tone, it's shaped by what data is presented, what numbers are emphasized, what statistics are repeated, and which ones are ignored. I'm not saying data is automatically false. I'm not saying that anyone is currently manipulating real-world numbers. What I'm saying is this. When persuasion becomes more important than accuracy, incentives change. If your goal is to protect or advance a political narrative, then the temptation to present data strategically increases. You emphasize what supports the story. You minimize what complicates it. You frame numbers in ways that align with the conclusion you want people to reach. And if that narrative becomes strong enough, if it becomes central to political survival or identity, then the motivation to make real-world decisions in ways that reinforce that narrative can also increase.
I don't know whether this is coordinated or simply the result of shared incentives, but either way, the effect is similar.
And once that shift happens, the danger isn't just misinformation, it's the erosion of shared reality. Because when narrative becomes the goal, data becomes a tool.